To hide the fact that I'm a 5-star Omega. I pretended to be a beta and married a top-tier alpha with a chronic illness. After our wedding, the top alpha vanished without a trace. I lived a peaceful, almost widowed life for a long time. Until the day I was dragged back to the family estate. In a pitch-black room, pheromones crashed over me like waves. An alpha lurking in the shadows suddenly pressed a bite block tightly against my gland. 1. When the front door opened, I thought it was just Ella bringing dinner. I put down the chips in my hand, jumped off the couch, and ran over barefoot to take the groceries. But after 2 steps, I froze. By the entrance, a tall alpha was swaying unsteadily, being half-dragged by a struggling beta secretary. The beta saw me and lit up like he'd found his savior. "Young master, stop standing there. Henry's drunk, come help get him to his room." Ha. Only as I walked closer did I realize the alpha was my husband. The one who only showed up once at our engagement party. He usually stayed at one of his other properties. I didn't even take over this place on his behalf, I reminded them kindly. "You've got the wrong place. He doesn't live here." The secretary looked at me in disbelief, his eyes wide. "Young master, the old man worked hard to get Henry drunk. This is the perfect chance." Perfect chance? I'm not a babysitter, why should I see taking care of a drunk guy as a good opportunity? I took a step back, afraid he'd just dumped that giant man on me. My stomach growled. I glanced up at the clock on the wall, then looked toward the door, now blocked by 2 figures. Why was Ella still not here at this hour? The man, who had been silent with downcast eyes, finally looked up. His gaze swept across me. It looked calm, but I could see the smile in his eyes. A kind of cool, mocking smile. That made me shiver instinctively. He straightened up, putting some distance between himself and the beta secretary. Then, as if suddenly sober, he said flatly, "You can head back now." The door shut again. Now there was one more person in the house. I stared at his aggressively good-looking face and tried to stand my ground. "You don't live here. You should let your secretary take you somewhere else." 2. It was the truth. After we got engaged and registered our marriage, they moved me into this house. Other than Ella, who came to clean and cook, there wasn't a soul around, not even a mouse. As for Henry, he vanished like he'd never existed. So I took it upon myself to turn the few guest rooms into art studios or storage spaces. Which meant there was now only one bed in the entire villa, mine. Henry raised an eyebrow. He noticed there weren't any slippers in his size at the entrance, then glanced at my bare feet. After a pause, he silently headed upstairs. I rushed after him to stop him. Too late. He withdrew his hand from the doorknob and slowly turned to face me, lips pressed together as if choosing his words carefully. "I remember, this was originally the master bedroom. It had a bed." Following his finger, I looked inside to see the room filled with sketches, models, and scattered paint. Guiltily, I dropped my gaze and fidgeted with my fingers. Then I seemed to remember something. I raised my head confidently. "Grandpa said this house belongs to me now. I can do whatever I want with it. Is that so?" He said lazily, his eyes lingering at my neck before quickly turning away. Irritated, he took a candy from his pocket and popped it into his mouth. The bright candy wrapper rustled between his fingers, making his already well-shaped hands look even more elegant. I hadn't expected Henry to have this softer side. Maybe he wasn't as scary as he looked. I leaned in a little. He smelled faintly of alcohol, but there was no overwhelming alpha pheromone scent. Gathering my courage, I asked, "Can I?" "What?" He frowned, not following. "Can I have one too? Ella hasn't brought dinner yet. I'm starving." 3. Henry looked perfectly polite and well-mannered, but still gave off a strange sense of pressure. He bit down on the candy and said, "No." "So mean." I pointed toward the door, "Then please leave." "Afraid I can't do that." He bent down and picked up the closest sketch paper, frowning slightly as he studied it. Then he calmly analyzed the situation to me. We may only be engaged, but since we're legally married, this house is legally shared property. I have every right to be here. I snatched the warship design sketch from his hand and hid it behind me, muttering, "Stingy jerk." I thought I said it under my breath, but Alpha hearing is too sharp. He chuckled, his voice low and teasing, "Stingy, huh?" Yes, I huffed. I let it all out. You wouldn't let Ella come cook, and you won't even give me a piece of candy. I'm really hungry. He paused, his tone serious but calm. That's not candy. It's medicine. Also, next time, don't wear shirts with such low necklines. What? I looked down. I wasn't even showing half my collarbone. Could it be Henry was into muscular guys, and my pale skinny frame disgusted him? But I'm a 5-star Omega. My bones are naturally finer than average Omegas, and no matter how much sun I get, my skin stays fair. I couldn't look buff even if I wanted to. His gaze drifted to my bare feet. Remember to wear slippers. And if not, at least put on socks. Don't expose your skin like that. He added, it's for your own good. Okay, I misjudged him. He probably just noticed the air conditioning was too cold and didn't want me catching a chill. After that, Henry left the room and went downstairs to sit in the living room. I craned my neck, peeking through the gaps in the staircase. The man had taken off his perfectly tailored suit and draped it casually over his arm as he loosened his tie. He pulled out his phone, talking to someone on the other end. From this angle, his top-tier alpha looks really did live up to the name. I stared at the sketch in my hands, and suddenly had a great idea. Right. Henry wasn't here often. Whenever he came by, I could just go back to my family home and let him sleep in my bed. Problem solved. I headed downstairs to leave. Henry heard the noise and looked up, not bothering to hide the fact that he was still on the phone. Yeah, not quite like the rumors. Seems kind of dumb. Grandpa probably planned the whole get him drunk thing. No, I'm not the kind of animal who'd take advantage of a kid. I wasn't sure who he was trash-talking, but his eyes never left me. Being stared at like that gave me the creeps. I pointed toward the door and gestured that I was leaving. Henry hung up and stood. Where are you going? His voice was calm, but his tall frame moved first, already blocking the exit. There's only one bed here. You can have it. I'll go back to my place. He looked amused. I'm afraid that won't work. Ha! I tilted my head in confusion. Was he suddenly trying to build a connection between us? If you step out that door, the bodyguards will report to my grandpa. He'll do whatever it takes to bring you back, unless... Unless what? Unless we get a divorce. 4. Divorce? No way. Do you know how much effort my family put into getting Henry to marry me? It was all so I could marry him. Ever since I differentiated as a 5-star Omega, my family had been worried they wouldn't be able to protect me. They feared I'd be snatched away by the military or the alliance government and used as a breeding tool. Only someone with connections across the military, government, and business sectors can keep you safe. And we heard he has a health issue. As long as the old man thinks you're a beta, and you keep pretending, no one will find out. Thinking of that, I shook my head desperately, nearly ready to get on my knees and beg this cold, emotionless alpha. I won't go. As long as we don't get divorced, I'll listen to whatever you say. Why? He looked at me with interest, clearly amused by my sudden change in attitude. Grandpa said, you liked me a lot. Clearly, he was mistaken. But alphas are proud. Especially one like Henry, a top-tier alpha with some mysterious health issue. I couldn't risk pissing him off. I felt sweat creeping down my back under his stare, and forced a smile. I like you, a lot. I'm thrilled to see you. I know you don't like me. I'm afraid I'll bother you just by being here. But when you like someone, you think of them in every way, right? The last few words came out a bit shaky. Is that so? Wow, you're really selfless. I couldn't tell if he believed me, but he simply sat back down on the sofa and resumed working on his laptop. The air felt awkward for a moment. I headed to the kitchen to cook something for myself. The doorbell rang. When I came out, Henry had already laid out the food on the table. What are you standing there for? Need someone to feed you? Didn't expect him to be the sharp-tongued, cold on the outside kind of person. But clearly, he still had a decent heart. As I was wolfing the food down, he suddenly said, "With today's tech, betas can have kids too." Huh? I was confused. Grandpa's eager for a grandchild. To give us some time alone, Ella won't be coming over for the next few days. Just as I was about to swallow a spoonful of soup, I choked hard from his casual delivery of that line. He gracefully pulled out a napkin and handed it to me. Then added, without missing a beat, "I'm in heat this week." 5. That night, I squatted on the balcony and called my brother. Maybe I should just get a divorce. Henry's in heat and I'm in Omega, he'll find out for sure. You're overthinking it. I heard he can't even manage a basic mark. Just relax. Really? You're not messing with me? Well, you've been married for this long and haven't once smelled his pheromones, right? That's because I haven't even seen him, okay? I pinched the phone between my fingers. Bro, are you secretly laughing at me right now? No. How could you think your big brother is that mean? Anyway, do you still have enough suppressant left? You usually skip your doses, but with Henry around, you absolutely have to take it. Don't let your pheromones slip or he'll find out you're an Omega. That made sense. I'd been hiding the fact that I'm an Omega from our housekeeper, so I never let her clean my room. I'd just left my suppressants lying around in the bathroom. And Henry just said he was going to shower. Crap. I bolted for the room. Henry was standing at the bathroom door. When he saw me clutching my stomach and panting, he pulled his hand back from the doorknob and looked at me calmly. Did a dog chase you? Thank God, he hadn't gone in yet. I need the bathroom first. I'll be quick, then you can shower. Henry stepped aside without saying anything. Once I'd hidden the suppressants securely, I came back out. But Henry had already left the villa. For the next few days, Henry behaved like he was clocking in and out of a job. Sometimes when I got back from school, he was already home. Occasionally, we ate together. Most of the time, he'd work on the far end of the room, keeping his distance, then leave after nightfall. So those sex ed classes warning that alphas in heat were like feral beasts, total lies? Henry in heat seemed more stable than most people. The only thing different. He'd occasionally pass by my studio and comment on my designs. The plane's wings are too small. Dark paint makes it harder to see details. Is this a warship or a tank? You drop this in water and it'll sink. I'd been obsessed with this stuff since I was a kid. Originally, I wanted to become an architect. But my dad and brother always told me, the military won't use a design made by an Omega. Give up the idea. Especially in recent years, Omegas have become even rarer and more strictly protected. People just expected us to be pretty vases. Stay at home, marry, and raise kids. I gave up. But sketching blueprints. That was my little rebellion. But Henry didn't see it that way. Maybe because he thought I was a beta. He was willing to guide me, help me analyze my work. He even found books related to design somewhere and patiently explained them to me. And just like that, this alpha who always seemed cold and distant suddenly didn't seem that hard to get along with. I even started to look forward to our next meeting. 6. Henry might be a top-tier alpha. But his need for control was even stronger than my brother's. The one time I came downstairs in a bathrobe, he gave me a sharp look and scolded me coldly. Relax. I'm healthy. I won't catch a cold. I picked up one of the books he'd brought back from who knows where and flipped through it. He actually understood the mechanical parts better than I did. I didn't care about his cold attitude and leaned over to ask a question. He suddenly stood up, pulled out one of those medicines, which were obviously just candies, and popped it into his mouth. He then called the bodyguards to get the driver ready. If he could just fix that temper, he'd be almost perfect. Henry told me he was going on a business trip abroad and wouldn't be around for a while. When I heard that, my chest felt a little tight. Maybe because he was the first person to ever believe in my dreams. Even though I'd lied about being a beta, and he only helped me because of that. Everything he taught me had helped me improve immensely. I handed him my finished blueprint like it was treasure. He studied it seriously and pointed out a few flaws. Guess I really wasn't cut out to be an architect. Sensing my disappointment, Henry, for the first time ever, gently patted my head. You've improved a lot already. I'll bring you a gift when I come back. Really? I gathered the courage to meet his eyes. Henry. When you come back, I want to tell you a secret. Jeremy, Henry suddenly grew serious. I'm really glad you want to share with me. But the reason a secret stays a secret is because telling it might hurt you, right? I wanted to say. If that person is you, maybe you wouldn't hurt me. 7. I told my brother everything. Henry seems to really like me. He brings me my slippers when I'm barefoot, takes off his jacket to keep me from getting cold, and more importantly, he gives me guidance. I don't want to hear it. My brother yelled over the phone. You're just like our parents, head over heels in love. Is our whole family crazy? Am I the only sane one left? Do you even know what happened to the people who lied to Henry before? He's only treating you nicely because he thinks you're a beta. If he finds out you're actually an omega, he'll think you approached him with ulterior motives. Listen to me, protect yourself. I didn't see Henry again until a month later, late at night. The call wasn't from Grandpa himself, it was the doctor he'd asked to call me. Before heading to the old family estate, I made sure to inject a suppressant. Once I was certain there was no trace of my scent, I got out of the car. The estate was even more grand and antique than I'd imagined. They came from a prestigious family with a 100-year legacy. Mom once told me that even the random cups in their house were antiques worth 8 figures. Led by a servant, I dragged my feet until Grandpa grabbed my arm and practically dragged me to Henry's bedroom door. Even with the suppressant, the overwhelming scent of pheromones hit me like a wall. Typically, alphas release just a subtle trace of scent, to establish dominance or attract interested omegas. But even when I was close to Henry before, I could barely smell anything. I thought his condition made him unable to produce pheromones. But now I realized, it was because he'd been controlling it all along. 8. Grandpa looked troubled. Henry has heat cycle syndrome. When it flares up, it triggers extreme oral aggression. He said it was usually well controlled with regular medication. But on his way back, a scheming omega with a 90% compatibility rate used pheromones to lure him into heat. Normally, no omega could survive being marked by him. If their gland doesn't get damaged, they'd have to thank the heavens. After rushing him back to the estate, Henry refused all help. No one can get close to him, and we can't inject the suppressant. If this goes on, his life could be at risk. Do you know why I agreed to your family's proposal back then? 1. Because you're a beta. 2. Because your brother said you'd had a crush on my grandson since you were little. That's why I trusted you would never hurt him. Jeremy, I know it's hard to accept Henry's condition. And I don't want to force you. With every word Grandpa said, the guilt in my heart deepened. Everything was a lie. My feelings for Henry, fake. The fact that I'm a beta, also fake. All of it was just to protect myself. Selfish. Ruthless. Deceitful. If it's too much for you, we'll file for divorce immediately. I wanted to explain. But the moment Grandpa said the word divorce, I interrupted. No, we can't divorce. Grandpa, where's the suppressant? Give it to me. As long as I inject it into his gland, he'll be okay, right? Fueled with courage like a soldier heading into battle. So much so, I forgot. I'm not a beta. I'm a delicate omega who can't withstand what's inside that room. Stepping in would be like offering myself up. 9. Grandpa was moved to tears by my fearless determination. He turned to the butler and said, "This is real love. That boy Henry is blessed. No, I'm the lucky one to have married him." I pocketed the suppressant. The moment I opened the door, a brief sliver of light slipped in before the room went completely dark again. Omegas don't have the same night vision as top-tier alphas. Aside from the pitch-black surroundings, the room was flooded with a suffocating amount of pheromones. Cold and intense, laced with a potent, hallucinogenic kind of mandrake scent. The suppressant I took seemed to be failing. My breathing grew heavier, my glands started to burn. Restless instincts, long suppressed, began to stir. I reached forward, trying to find the light switch. Then I remembered what we were taught in biology class. Alphas in heat develop photophobia. I forced myself to stop. Henry? I took a few more steps. No answer. I turned toward where the bed might be. And caught a faint blue glow near the window. Eyes. Hiding in the dark. Glowing like a wolf's under moonlight. My legs gave out. Who told you to come in? The owner of the eyes finally spoke. His deep voice carried a suffocating pressure. I turned, trying to run. But the alpha pheromones surrounding me tightened like an invisible net. So tight I could barely breathe. I'd never seen Henry like this. And I was terrified. As I hesitated, he came closer, step by step. I backed away until my spine hit the cold wall. He leaned down, slowly closing the distance. Something cold and metallic pressed against the side of my neck. He sniffed at my gland. Then lifted my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. To my surprise, he was wearing a muzzle, a bite-restraining device. It covered most of his face, making him look stern and restrained. My heart ached a little. A once proud and noble alpha, brought to this state by uncontrollable instincts. Maybe that's why he agreed to marry a beta. If he ever found out I was an omega, would he? My jaw was suddenly pinched hard. The terrifying aura of a top alpha pressed down on me. Do you regret liking me now? 10. We learned in biology that omega pheromones have a calming effect on alphas in heat. I wasn't Henry's designated omega. But I was a 5-star O. If I released a bit of calming scent, it might help. So I did. Cool mint, mixed with the soft fragrance of bluebells. It seemed to work. Henry tilted his head, like a beast that had just bared its fangs and now paused, subdued. He looked quiet, almost docile. That gentleness tricked me. And I remembered all the kindness he'd shown me before. Henry, I like you. I won't hurt you. I took a deep breath and wrapped my arms around his neck. Beep beep. I released the lock on his bite restraint. His strikingly handsome face was fully exposed. He didn't move, waiting for my next cue. Henry, you can mark me. As if he'd been granted permission. The next moment, Henry sank his teeth into my neck. He seemed to be holding back. Just before touching my skin, he slowed, gently scraping it with his canines. As if testing how sweet the prey might be. Then, satisfied, he licked the mark he left behind. His voice was low and raspy. My dear Omega wife, did you come here just to die? What? Henry, he knew I was an Omega. But everyone says alphas in heat can't distinguish friend from foe. And yet, he still had judgment. Henry, it's okay. I don't need you to take responsibility. He cut me off with action. Clack, the bite restraint dropped to the floor. I felt my whole body engulfed by a strange new sensation. Bracing against the wall, I winced through the pain as sweat and blood slowly trickled from my neck into my collar. The man who caused it showed no mercy. As if he'd made a decision to break me completely. His eyes darkened. He wiped the blood from his lip with his thumb. "And you still don't need me to take responsibility?" I bit my lip, stubbornly. "No need." His gaze dimmed. And while I wasn't prepared, he suddenly kissed me. Poured all his frustration into that one breathless moment. I didn't know how long it lasted. I was burning, aching, breathless. "Henry. I really must owe you something in a past life." I liked him. But no one could endure this overwhelming flood of alpha pheromones. While he let his guard down, I pulled out the suppressant. Stabbed it into his gland. Only half the dose went in. Before he smacked the syringe to the floor. The caged beast had been provoked. He pinned me down into the couch with a vengeance. 11. What are you trembling for? Afraid now? A long finger pressed against my neck, cutting off my breath. The alpha finally revealed his cruel side, smiling cruelly from his core. I struggled wildly, clinging to his arm to break free, but my breath grew thinner and thinner. Snap! The table lamp by the sofa flicked on. The harsh white light blinded me briefly. Under the light, that extremely handsome face of his looked even colder and more severe. He suddenly stopped and relaxed his grip. His eyes fixed sharply on a spot on my chest. My shirt had torn wide open during my struggle. The pale skin mixed with fresh blood radiated a strange, irresistible desire. Especially for Henry, who suffered from severe oral urges. Deadly. No, lethal. If this continued, I really would get bitten to death. I copied his earlier move. Held his face clumsily and kissed him. Blocking any chance of further violence. My breathing became erratic. He tensed all over, still stunned. I pulled out another suppressant and injected it into his gland. This time he didn't resist, letting me push it in. The drug worked as it should. The room fell quiet. I pushed the alpha off me as he collapsed into a short sleep. Henry, we're even now. 12. Henry stayed home resting for several days after this chaotic heat cycle episode, pushing work aside. I feared he would remember that night's events if we met. When Grandpa repeatedly asked if I wanted to visit the old estate, I lied and said I'd sprained my ankle. How did it happen? Is it serious? Should I have the butler look after you? I stared at the scattered bandages by my bedside, unsure how to make myself look convincingly ill, and gently declined Grandpa's offer. No need for that. I'll recover soon. Jeremy, that day Grandpa started but stopped himself. Before going out that day, I used Henry's bathroom to shower, washing off the pheromones and blood on me. I threw the nearly torn shirt in the trash and put on one of Henry's. I picked a high-neck one, hiding the bite marks on my neck. Grandpa didn't notice anything unusual. Now that I think about it. Could Henry have remembered something? Grandpa, actually I was about to admit I'm an Omega. Suddenly, Henry's voice came from the other room. Grandpa, the injection is finished. That single voice stirred memories I desperately tried to suppress. I hurriedly hung up to calm myself. Injection. Does that mean Henry still hasn't recovered? How long will I have to keep pretending my leg is injured? 13. Until nightfall, I knew I didn't have to pretend anymore. When I woke up and cheerfully came downstairs, I saw him busy cooking in the kitchen, wearing an apron. I thought I was still dreaming. I ran over and pinched his side. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, pulling me back and pinning me against the kitchen counter. What are you trying to do? His tone wasn't angry, there was an odd hint of indulgence. We were standing way too close. I felt slightly suffocated. I watched his lips move silently. I couldn't help but remember that dark room. The overwhelming pheromones and the dominant behavior of a top-tier alpha. When I didn't move, Henry released my wrist and politely kept his distance. Only now did I realize how much more restrained he was compared to his usual ferocity during heat cycles. This is my house. I'll do whatever I want. Feeling thirsty, I grabbed an empty cup and downed a glass of water. Henry's gaze lingered for a second on the bite marks on my neck, then looked away. Then he smiled faintly. You just drank from my cup. Me, should I spit it back for you? 14. I nervously adjusted my collar to hide the marks better. He must have forgotten what happened that day. Otherwise, he'd have confronted me already, demanding to know why I lied. I sighed in relief, then suddenly felt a pang of realization. Henry needed an 4 drip that morning to keep going. By afternoon, he was fine enough to cook me a full meal. A medical miracle. Henry glanced at my bare feet again. He took off his slippers, bent one knee, and crouched in front of me. A rib slipped off my chopsticks, falling onto the table. More shocking than Henry cooking was that he personally put on my shoes for me. The atmosphere turned a little awkward. He gently squeezed my ankle. Grandpa said you couldn't get out of bed because of your sprained foot. Grandpa said you're getting 4 treatments. 2 voices echoed in the dining room simultaneously. I was the only one feeling guilty. Henry slowly stood up, took a candy from his pocket, and popped it into his mouth while leisurely explaining. Grandpa worries about me. And since I've been busy with the company these days, the doctor gave him some tonic medicine. After he finished, he raised an eyebrow as if signaling me to respond. I joked back, first place in one thing, second in none. I lowered my head, my lashes trembled. When I looked up again, tears had gathered in my eyes. I don't want to see you, you know. Henry looked puzzled. What? You don't like me but married me anyway. Then you give me the cold treatment. You know when I'm in heat. I quickly covered my mouth, sneaking a glance at his expression. My mouth was loose at the worst moment. Henry's face stayed normal, seemingly not noticing. The engagement was Grandpa's decision. Plus, you're busy with work. I'll move in. So formal. I nodded without thinking. That night, when Henry's assistant brought a mountain of luggage to the door, I was completely stunned. Henry, what's going on? He looked calm. I'm fixing the cold treatment mistakes I made before. No need to fix it. My heat cycle was just days away. If Henry stayed here, it would definitely get noticed. 15. Thankfully, Henry finally had a change of heart. He had the bodyguard prepare the guest bedroom. Moved a bed in. I leaned over the second-floor railing, looking downstairs to see Henry sitting in the middle of the living room, buried in a stack of documents. Maybe he was anxious to work, still in his sharp, tailored suit, only the top few buttons undone. That face, handsome to a fault. Putting aside his stunning looks, Henry appeared decisive and ruthless to outsiders. But with me, he was always polite and gentle. Though occasionally sharp-tongued, he wasn't frivolous. It created a strange kind of tension. I remembered the buried memory again. Touched the gland on my neck that still burned a little. Technically, we were marked temporarily and sharing a bed shouldn't be a big deal. The problem was, I'm an Omega. A Beta Omega who lied to him. The doctor said Henry's illness was stable but couldn't handle frequent heat cycles from Omegas. How do I confess? That we actually can't be together? When my brother asked to meet, Henry called and said he wanted to take me somewhere after work. I hung up. My brother looked at me deeply. No wonder you're so hesitant. So you too. Don't say that, I cut him off quickly. At home, they'd heard about Henry's condition, severe oral urges during his heat cycle disorder. They urged me to file for divorce immediately. Don't worry. Grandpa and parents are involved. You're an Omega, it's too dangerous for you to be around such a top alpha. You might lose your life. My parents decided to send me abroad. It's safer than being by Henry's side. That way, Henry's safer too. My brother was right, compared to an alpha's heat cycle, an omega's is much more frequent. The closer I get to him, the worse his condition becomes. Okay, I'll think about it. My thoughts were a mess. Henry came to pick me up. Maybe he sensed my bad mood. We drove in silence. The car headed to the suburbs. After parking, Henry opened the door for me. I stared, stunned, at the 4 characters on the gate, military restricted area. Why aren't you moving? He walked over, reaching for my hand. Suddenly, a hearty laugh interrupted us. Senior brother, welcome home. Henry's tall figure stood between me and the newcomer, who didn't even notice me at first. When he got closer, he seemed surprised. Who's this? Senior brother, how do you know such a beautiful omega? Alpha instincts showed, he couldn't control his pheromones around a desirable omega. I involuntarily took a step back, but Henry quickly grabbed my hand and gently pulled me into his embrace. This is my wife. He's a beta. The alpha looked embarrassed, then murmured confusedly. That can't be, how could someone this beautiful not be an omega? Luckily, all alphas have strong possessiveness. Henry rarely released his pheromones, but now he did. Like turning on a powerful purifier, the scent of mandrake instantly filled the air. The alpha in the captain's uniform shivered, intimidated, and hurriedly led the way forward. 16. The alpha who called Henry senior brother led us across the drill ground to the warship model exhibition. For me, this was beyond anything I could have dreamed of. The military aircraft and armor I'd only seen on news or combat videos were perfectly replicated to scale. Design drafts and detailed functions were displayed on the left side of the glass cases. Henry, whom I had nearly forgotten, suddenly spoke. Too bad no photos allowed. Of course I knew that. Letting me in was probably already a big favor. You remember I promised to get you a gift after my business trip, but it was delayed because of that accident. That sounded familiar. I pulled my gaze away from a destroyer model, looking puzzled at Henry. He raised his chin, cool and unhurried, saying, pick whichever you like. It's for you. Ha! I wondered if either of us was crazy. Henry was so used to being a CEO that he probably thought everywhere was his home. I tugged his sleeve and whispered, this isn't a store. Stealing anything here could get us into serious trouble. It's not stealing. It's a gift. The Alpha captain, holding a key, came over looking sentimental. Our senior brother sacrificed a lot. I heard he didn't just trade a sniper medal with our boss, but nearly lost himself trying to have dinner with his son. What? Could it be that Henry got triggered by an Omega and fell ill just to give me this model? Henry's killer glare silenced the Alpha immediately. To avoid Henry losing face, I picked the biggest warship model inside. It was huge and heavy. Henry carried it for me and put it in the car's back seat. I buckled my seatbelt and gathered my words. Henry. His handsome fingers gripped the steering wheel. Without looking at me, he responded softly, Can you tell me what's really going on? Henry paused and answered honestly. I thought you'd like it, so I wanted to give it to you. That answer. I hesitated, pursing my lips. You still remember when I said I had a secret? Henry turned the wheel sharply to avoid an oncoming car. We arrived home before I found the courage to say more. 17. Henry helped me carry the model into my room. He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe, showing no intention of leaving. He seemed to be waiting for me to say the secret I hadn't spoken out loud. I felt uneasy, like a wave of heat washing over me, even my gland burning slightly. I rushed to the bathroom to grab the suppressant hidden in the cabinet. My phone rang in the room beyond the bathroom door. That's your brother. Henry stayed at the door, his reflection on the frosted glass showing off his impressive figure. My hand holding the suppressant trembled, afraid he might come in. You answer. It proved true, an Omega in heat often doesn't think straight. Jeremy, did you talk to Henry about divorce? Mom and Dad talked it over. You absolutely cannot stay with Henry. Even if you weren't an Omega, no Alpha could handle his illness. My brother's voice came through the speaker to both me and Henry. I had already mentally prepared my will. I know you don't really like him. At a time like this, suppressants didn't matter. I pushed open the bathroom door and bumped straight into Henry's arms. Henry's face was calm. He lazily lifted his eyelids and held my waist, stopping me from running away. His other hand was still on the phone. He spoke calmly to the caller, "Sorry, here there's no divorce, only widowhood." Obviously, my brother caused trouble without caring about anyone else's life. Henry. Let me explain. Alpha pheromones silently filled the room. Henry slowly unwrapped a candy, popped it in his mouth, then gently lifted my chin with a finger and whispered, "You want a divorce?" I shook my head desperately. Don't listen to my brother's nonsense. I don't want a divorce. It's just that I'm an Omega, and it affects your illness. That means you don't like me. 18. Henry's voice was calm and steady. He respected my interests and considered my feelings. How could I not like such an Alpha? Henry thought I accepted it, and his pheromones spread widely, pushing me into heat. I struggled to keep my breath steady. But my body betrayed me. I uncontrollably grabbed Henry's shirt, trying to smell his pheromones. But he seemed to see through my attempt and cruelly retracted them. I felt a bit wronged, tears welled up in my eyes. Henry's touch shifted from pinching to gentle caressing, his fingertips stroked my face softly. If you don't like me, then why did you let me mark you in the first place? That moment hit me like a thunderstorm, tsunami, and earthquake all at once, falling only on me. So, that day you didn't forget. You knew I was an Omega. Henry buried his face in my gland, sniffing lightly, and lazily said, "It was even earlier than that. My dear wife, you just tossed the suppressant in the bathroom casually. Are you afraid others don't know you're an Omega?" A sharp sting came to my neck. But it missed the gland, leaving an unsatisfying itch, like scratching over clothes. I was spoiled by my family after all. I couldn't hold back. "Henry, are you serious? If you don't mark me, I'll go find someone else." How to anger a top-tier Alpha with severe oral urges in one sentence. Henry's natural restraint and politeness disappeared completely in bed. He gave but never fully, forcing me to beg repeatedly before granting mercy. After the heat cycle passed, only one sentence repeated in my mind. There's no divorce here, only widowhood. Grandpa knew that for an Omega to survive under Henry's mouth, he must have knelt to the ancestors that very night. I said it's because of all my good deeds in life that my grandson gets to freeride on a 5-star Omega. We got our 97% compatibility report. The doctor finally switched from calling it a medical miracle to saying, "See? I told you no one can fight genetic instincts. They're made for each other." I sulked for a long time. "Henry, did you like me because of my pheromones?" "Guess." Henry checked my final design drafts, confirmed everything was correct, then put them in the file bag. He gently pinched my cheek. No one can refuse a little bunny running down the stairs. "What?" I blinked. Henry smiled, a bit helpless. "Jeremy, do you believe in love at first sight? The moment I learned you were an Omega, I thought about running away. But somehow, I was inexplicably drawn to you. Not because of pheromones, not because of genes. From the first time I saw you, I knew I would love you, not out of necessity, nor by chance, but because I just do."